But we begin with the little notice year-long probe that could have a big effect on the investigation by special counsel Robert Mueller. Last January, the Justice Department's Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, quietly began investigating the FBI and DOJ's handling of the Hillary Clinton email scandal. Now, recently, that inquiry turned up evidence of anti-Trump bias amongst key players in the Russia investigation. Remember those Peter Strzok and Lisa Page text that talks about an insurance plan? That came from Michael Horowitz's investigation at the IG. Now, all of Washington is waiting to see what other bombshells this investigation may reveal in the new year, and whether this could discredit part or all of the Mueller probe. Joining us now to discuss from Washington, D.C. is Scott Bolden, a Democratic strategist. And with me here in New York City is James Freeman, who is the assistant editor of the Wall Street Journal's editorial page. Gentlemen, both, thank you for joining me this morning. I'm on Fox and Friends all the time, so it's morning or night. I can't get it right. This is the Ingraham angle. We are here this evening. Scott, let me start with you now that I know where I am. This investigation, Bob Mueller's name is a household name right now. The Democrats are banking through their resistance that he's going to take down this president. The name Michael Horowitz is not one well known, but his investigation has already bore fruit in that, Peter Strzok and others have had to leave the Mueller probe as a result of showing anti-Trump bias. Is this not an investigation, if they show that special treatment was given to Hillary Clinton, that could have serious consequences?
No, I mean, I understand about the Strzok issue, but he was removed. As a former prosecutor, let me just say this. He was not the only decision maker. And until you show that the investigation has been tainted, not just having one investigator that was tainted and was properly removed, you don't have political bias. You can't select people to be on the investigation team, whether it was those who investigated Hillary Clinton or those who are on the Mueller investigation, simply because of a political affiliation. They have to show political bias. And there's nothing there right now, no matter how many times the GOP throws political hand grenades at the Mueller investigation.
Well, Scott, you say that Peter Strzok is not the only one in the investigation. True. Enter Andy McCabe, who's the number two over there as part of this as well. Now, when the email Clinton investigation was going on, we know now through evidence that Andy McCabe said that this Clinton email investigation should receive special status. There's Andrew McCabe right now. He's also been referred to as Andy in the insurance policy in the text between Strzok and Lisa Page. So if Andy McCabe says special status in this investigation, James Freeman, if the Inspector General is trying to consider whether or not it was a fair investigation, are we not onto something here?
I think we are onto something, and I assume Mr. Bolden and people, or at least Democratic colleagues, were pretty happy when this Horowitz investigation got going, because the idea here was there was a theory in Democratic circles that Mr. Comey at the FBI had put his thumb on the scale and helped Donald Trump get elected. So I think this was I think this was perhaps seen as a way to discredit the Trump administration. Now, as you said quietly, Mr. Horowitz hasn't been leaking, but he appears to have been doing a lot of work, taking a lot of documents, a lot of interviews. He has interviewed Mr. Comey, among others.
Lynch as well.
Right. And we're going to get a report probably late winter, early spring. And it's focused on the Comey process, not his decisions, but did he follow FBI procedures? And I don't see how anyone can say, yes, he did, because that was one thing that former AGs, former deputy AGs of both lost now in the intervening months. But agreement that former FBI Director James Comey did not follow Bureau procedures when he took upon it himself to announce that there would be no prosecution of Mrs. Clinton, when he shared his thoughts publicly in a press conference about her culpability. That's not what prosecutors do, and he's not a prosecutor. He's supposed to gather the information.
That's right.
Prosecutors make the decision.
Scott, specifically, this DOJ Inspector General is looking at, as was mentioned by James, the review of the Clinton email investigation. Authorities are examining whether the Justice Department and FBI followed establishment policies and procedures. It doesn't feel like established policies and procedures to write the exoneration of the person you're investigating 2 months before you talk to them, and as well as deemed this investigation special, which means only a few people at the top of the FBI were actually involved in investigating Hillary Clinton. And I will note, this is very important. No, this is very important to note. This Inspector General launched this report independently before President Trump was president, and he's an Obama appointee. So this is not something President Trump has launched. And why is this getting very little coverage and notice when Bob Mueller is wall to wall on every other network in this city?
Well, Bob Mueller's not done any interviews, quite frankly. It's been the political pundits. That's one thing.
Done a little bit of leak.
Unusual. Well, we don't know that either. But there was nothing usual about the Clinton investigation. Politics crept its way in, and there were loud political bangs from day one. So, as a former prosecutor, a special status meant absolutely they were trying to protect the investigation from not only leaks but political comments and to having politics injected into it. I think the Inspector General, we welcome his investigation because it is something that's really important. But I still don't think that if there was something there, we'd have it by now. We did get the emails, don't get me wrong. But again, was there political bias? Was this handled in an inappropriate manner? It certainly was handled in an unusual manner with Comey, and most Democrats hated Comey reopening the investigation or even making public statements. That was unusual, but I think Comey indicated, and I didn't agree with his status or his basis for it, but he laid out his basis for taking these unusual steps. So we welcome the IG investigation. I think Democrats and Republicans ought to be both concerned but relieved once that report comes out.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see what it reveals. James, we hear investigation, this investigation, House, Senate investigations, a lot of them going on right now. But through all of those, it has revealed what a lot of people feel like is a FBI DOJ swamp. And we're not talking about the agents that do the great work. It's talking about leadership, whether it's Strzok, Andrew Weissman, who was to attend Hillary Clinton's victory party until it wasn't a victory party. Right. Bruce Orr, his connections, his wife Nellie, to Fusion GPS, and Andy McCabe, James Comey, James Baker, the counsel who had to step down. It seems like a lot of deep state Democrats who have an extra grind or a political preference, and we all know political preferences, everyone's allowed to have them, but if they start to cloud your judgment or give you reason and rationale to pursue someone for a different reason, how do you not look at that and say, we need to find out more?
Right. The FBI agents, they're allowed to have political opinions, but when you get into extreme bias, that's what we saw in the Strzok texts. That's why Mueller fired him. He would not have fired him if there wasn't that issue of extreme bias. And as this rolls forward, remember, the whole reason the Mueller investigation exists is because Comey was fired. What this Horowitz inquiry is going to do.
And then asked his buddy to leak things to make sure he triggered a special counsel.
Well, this is going to shine a light once again on the fact that Mr. Comey deserved to be fired. The reputation of the FBI was in tatters last year because of what he was doing in conducting his investigation into the emails. And what this is going to do is bring up a lot of issues that were kind of tossed aside or forgotten when the focus moved to Mr. Trump, when he started talking about the reasons he fired Mr. Comey. If you go back to May and you look at Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein's memo, it laid out chapter and verse on how Mr. Comey had violated longstanding procedures. It quoted officials from both parties over the years saying this is antithetical to the interests of justice. I think Horowitz is now looking into that. That's a problem for Comey and for Mueller.
Wow.
Yeah, but my goodness,
briefly,
gracious
20
guys,
seconds. That's it. Go
listen,
ahead.
This is all political rhetoric. You got to show political bias. Show me one document, one witness testimony, one
What about the
email
text message that says, Andy, we've got insurance policy?
Anything. The insurance, and that individual was removed from the campaign.
He wouldn't have been without the Inspector General report,
right?
right?
Goodness for the Inspector General. But that doesn't show political bias. It means that he was tainted, but the investigation was not tainted.
But he was in charge of the Hillary Clinton email investigation. He was in charge of changing. He changed
not his decision.
Peter Strzok and Andrew McCabe were a part of changing the wording from extremely negligent to gross negligence.
In the end, it was Mueller's call. This is all political conjecture. Republicans would love to make more of it, but until you have evidence, documentary or otherwise, because the FBI and DOJ, that's really all they're looking at. All you have are these political grenades by the Republicans. I mean, my goodness, if you all don't want any Democrats to be on any of the investigation team, then we're starting to look like a third world
don't worry. Don't worry. There are plenty of Democrats on these investigation teams.
That was the whole point of the Rosenstein memo. Jamie Gorelick, former deputy AG under Bill Clinton. Eric Holder, official in both the Clinton and Obama Justice Departments.
If
Are you
you're gonna
discounting
start
what they said
evaluating
about
people
Comey's
who are going
conduct?
to be on the investigation, then their political support, who they write checks to, if they attend a briefing, or I'm sorry, if they attend a fundraising, and you're going to say that needs to be investigated, that's nonsensical.
Wow, $675,000 to the wife of the number 2 in the investigation who's running for Congress it means something,
well,
especially when you.
House. And she took money from the state governor and from the state Democratic Party in Virginia. What else is she supposed to do? You want them to be divorced over this?
Perception is extremely important in addition to reality in these particular circumstances.
Perception does not require an investigation. Politically, you may like the fact that they've done this, but that's the art of the deal. There's nothing illegal, inappropriate, unethical about it, and you can't make it that way by merely repeating that conjecture.
The American people are still grateful for the fact that you've got Bob Mueller doing his thing, but the name Michael Horowitz, which is not a household name, who seems to be apolitical, is digging down to the fact that our Secretary of State had a private server in her home and deleted, bleach-bitted 33,000 emails and got away with it, and that makes people feel like the system is rigged differently for them than it would be for someone with political connections. We'll find out. We'll find out what the conclusions are, which is the most important part.
So you want more investigation done to your political enemies.
If the conclusions were based on a swamp that was benefiting Hillary Clinton, of course I want more investigation. A lot of people do.
You just feel that.
We may get evidence of that, and that's the point.
HRC and Obama.
Scott,
give it up. You're obsessed with it.
Scott, we've got to leave it right there. James, we've got to leave it right there. Eventually, we'll get to the bottom, hopefully, in both of these fronts. Thanks, gentlemen.